the flow rates of the river coming out of the temple. When I was in congregation on Sabbath, somebody asked me about the river calculations that I'd done and said, did you do the flow rate calculations? And I hadn't, but I'd estimated them very close to the Colorado River. So I actually ran the flow rate numbers. Now the Colorado River, as it comes into the Grand Canyon, has a discharge of 10,000 cubic feet per second. So that's our baseline. Now that's at the beginning of the Colorado, at the Grand Canyon. Now as it comes down, again, it's most likely going to be higher in case any water goes into it. I ran the calculator for the flow rates coming out of the temple. Now the problem is it never tells us what the width of that river is. So if I'm going to estimate it at 100 feet, maybe it's 150 feet. It changes the math dramatically. Now if I run that, basically, because we know within a mile, just slightly more than a mile, that river is already what I would consider chest height. It could be higher than that. So I would say for me about 5 feet. It could be 6 feet. It just doesn't really give that indication. And that's really the factor. So I've ran it two different ways. One with 5 feet of depth and the other with 6 feet of depth. If I'm running it at 6 feet of depth, it is running at roughly 80% of the Colorado River flow. And if I increase that to 150 feet wide, I'm running at 95% of what the Colorado River is. Now if I go back and back that up to about a 5 foot, I'm getting about 60% of the flow rate of the Colorado River. And again, that's at 100 feet wide and at a 5 foot depth. So about as small as I could see something like that. Now my N number on there, I ran a .07, basically saying the only thing that's going to be able to handle that are huge boulders in the ground. So it'd be a very rough surface to try to slow it down a little bit. It may not have those, so it could be a faster flowing and more water would then be leaving. But I ran the greater boulder size just to decrease that number as much as possible. Again, I'm very close to the Colorado River with my estimations of what it is. Now, the interesting thing is I also looked at the Dead Sea, the gallons of evaporation per day, which is about 840,000 gallons of evaporation per day. The least of these, the least flow rate of these would equal the evaporation rate per day in half a minute. About 30 seconds, sometimes as low as 14 seconds. It handles what evaporates it in a day. That's the amount of water that is going into, that is only from the temple. That's not even including the Jordan River, to the extent the Jordan River is even going to exist below the Sea of Galilee. With that amount of water, I just cannot imagine that the Dead Sea and the Sea of Galilee are not going to join and become one. But again, just the nerdy aspects of running numbers.